Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and today's topic is on looking at the Enigma of Secrets. And share the screen here. In the 12-step programs for Alcoholics Anonymous that has expanded to be over any kind of addiction. One of their statements is that your sickness is in your secrets, that the more we hold things secret, the more they begin to fester and turn into something other than what we thought it would be. Because, well, thoughts become things, the things that we think about magnifies. So here we go. In looking at, there is a movie that is, I get the advertisements for it, so it's called The Wisdom of Trauma, and it is available to be watched online from October the 4th through the 10th. And it is based on the Dr. Gabor Mate. And the subtitle to The Wisdom of Trauma is, Can Our Deepest Pain Be the Doorway to Healing? And that kind of goes hand in hand with choice theory and a lot of other things. But anyway, here's some of the things that in the trailer telling about the upcoming movie that Dr. Mate had to say. He said that the U.S. is the richest society in history, yet a full half of her citizens have chronic disorders that demand the denial of human needs. This is a place we call civilized. All is not well. To be in dominance, one must destroy relationship. And I'm not going to try to interpret that. I find it to be very deep. I don't know that I know what it means. But there's something there that makes me want to go deeper and find out more about it. And the fact that to be dominant demands the destruction of relationships. Mm-hmm. And how that our chronic disorders, over half of us, not in the world, he was talking about in the U.S., the United States of America, that over half have chronic disorders that demand a need within us be denied in order for that chronic condition to thrive. Well, I don't want anything like that. And so the concepts I always like to look at and letting my audience know kind of where I'm coming from. Having worked with prisoners for 20 plus years, and in working with them one-on-one initially, as well as in classes and so forth, I would tell them right up front that I need you to know where I'm coming from. And that I personally, because we've talked before about what a large spectrum that we have. We are, even in the midst of all of these spectrums, we're more alike than we are different. Some of those spectrums is looks and temperaments and beliefs and psychologies and all that kind of stuff. And so I would tell my audience right up front, I need you to know that I personally believe in God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but I am comfortable with you wherever you may be in your belief system. Whether that's psychological, whether it's something divinity, regardless of what the belief system is, regardless of what the culture is, I am comfortable with you where you are. And I find that, in looking at the fact that we're more alike than we're different, and all the movies on the apocalypse of the end of times, but there is a scripture in the Holy Bible that I read that talks about the fact that it's the end time, and the conqueror comes riding in on a white horse and a crown and all this. And it says there is a name written that no one knows but himself. And I just hold on to that. Another plane of where I come from is that believing or thinking that all 7.9 billion of us on planet Earth have infinite worth and value. And infinite. I found a definition of infinite from Michael Singer just the other day. And I thought, man, this is powerful. I love it. And I want to read it to you. It's in his book called The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer. And he says, things seem finite because your perception hits mental boundaries. In truth, everything is infinite. It is you who takes that which goes on forever and talks about it as being a mile from here. What is a mile from here? It is nothing but a piece of infinity. There are no limits. That every time we give everything is infinite. When we get to the where that boundary ends, there is more there that just keeps going on and on and on. And so the third thing about me that I like to share is that I like to embrace the mystery. And it's kind of like once you get to the end of that mile and you still have, the infinity still goes on, because the thoughts we think materialize. It's not instant, but they do begin to materialize. So Dr. William Glasser, talking about all the different philosophies there are in life and belief systems, Dr. William Glasser is one of my absolute favorites. And he wrote Reality Therapy in 1965, which was a book that was written for professionals, but the common ordinary person really began to take it and digest it and embody it and live it out and teach others, whether that was in the classroom or any helping organization. Another book that Dr. Glasser wrote, the basic thesis in reality therapy, that we need to get real, quit looking at all these illusions and get real, that we need to be responsible for what we think, for what our actions are, and for the results of those thoughts and actions, and that we need to know that we do know right from wrong and let ourselves know that we do, because we have this voice inside of us. We have something inside of us that knows whenever we're doing what is a-okay and what isn't a-okay. Anyway, another book that he wrote in 1981 was called Stations of the Mind. And it was looking at a building, and you kind of go, which is us, and you go up 10 stories, and the more you go up, the higher it is to live there, but the more you can see, the greater your vision is. The more you go up, it costs more. There's more price to be paid. There's more things to do, but yet at the same time, our consciousness is awakening and we can see further. And then he wrote another book, Positive Addiction, in 1997. And basically he was saying that to be healthier and to be stronger, then we must become addicted. But we're not talking to AA addictions of whatever that may be, whether it is alcohol or drugs or booze or shopping or hoarding or food or just whatever. It's to become a positive addiction, things that are good for us, things that cause us to thrive. And Dr. Glasser wrote a lot more books also. But with every one he wrote, his basic philosophy was, well, go with this one, not the ones I've written before, because this is what I'm thinking now. Why? Because we're always changing. We are always changing. And it's a two-way street. We're always changing, either improving or declining, because we never stand static. So in looking at the 12-step program, I'm just going to go through the 12 steps with you, and this is directly from their book. Now, these are, I've copied them. They are posters that I made from the 12 step and put the step itself, and then And I had these all along the hallway. And whenever I had an office for my own where people could come to talk with me or to take classes, I had them posted everywhere. So I just wanted to share them with you from kind of the original source. But step number one, there's 12 steps in the 12-step program. Step number one is we admitted we were powerless over. And so you can fill in the blank there, that our lives had become unmanageable. And if you can't think of a particular life controlling issue, I just encourage you to maybe insert the word ego or pride. My life is unmanageable. Well, what does that mean? It is coming to the fact that I need to admit defeat, that we're bankrupt. I keep trying and trying and trying, and I may have a few coins left, but I don't have enough to pay my way through. That it's more and more humiliating to look at what I'm doing, but I don't know how to do anything about it. And although I'm taking efforts for it, all of my efforts to try to correct things is really pretty self-righteous. Step two is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And so we're looking at the fact that maybe we're a little insane here, that we're thinking thoughts that is just not so good for us. It's not enlightening. It's not energizing. It's not something that we're proud of. And so we came to believe that there is a force. The force be with you. There's a power. There is something mysterious that can help us to become who we are born to be, who we are created to be. And so in this, we don't have to swallow all of it at once. Matter of fact, it don't even require you believing in it. It's just kind of test it and say, let me stick my toe in the water and see if it works. It's having an open mind an inch at a time. At least consider it. It's always continually asking, well, what if? What if there is any truth to this? What if this could be? What if this could lead to something that is effective? Step three, we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God or divinity or a kind benevolent universe as we understood him. And I love this. And all through the 12-step program, it repeats that several times, as we understood, because it goes back up to our spectrums of how our understanding, we're going to understand something tomorrow that we didn't understand today, or hopefully maybe a little clearer. And so it's looking at the fact that perception hits mental boundaries. It hits a boundary. It's still there because we haven't gotten to the end of where that boundary stops. And that thinking manifests. And so as we turn it over to this, we're always talking to ourselves. Is it me, myself, and I? There's a lot of other people that it's voice echo that we're remembering of what someone has, said to us before. What all is it that our mind, it just becomes that chatter, chatter, chatter until we learn how to keep it calm. Anyway, just kind of checking it out. Step 4 is to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of our lives, to begin to get honest. How might I be a part of the problem? It's beginning to self-evaluate. It's beginning to look internally instead of externally and see that maybe all of these problems, I may want to put a lot of blame out there, but just maybe there really is that monster inside and that I need to look at it and tame it. Because that natural inclination that felt good, looked good, tasted good, once we took it internally, as in to eat it, as in to buy into it, it began to set up a physical and a mental liability. And so step 4 is to take the blinders off and begin to get honest with ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to the force, to something, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Now, you don't have to go into extreme detail. You don't have to strip. You don't have to be nude before someone. You can just simply point out, because, you know, we begin to be accountable. And remember, back to Dr. Glasser, get real, uh, uh, be responsible, to remove that isolation. Because you see, we need to open up to someone else, at least one someone else. We need to release that dammed up condemnation and blame that we're holding in, because darkness flees when the light's turned on. And it doesn't matter. It can be a pitch black, I mean pitch, you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And yet a little bitty firefly or a weakening battery way off in a far corner will draw your attention to it, because light always breaks the darkness. And as we begin to have some knowledge, you know, what we've got here is okay, but we're going to learn something else. Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Now, I realize that's a little airy-fairy. I realize that as though we want something magic, something instant to just take all my defects away. Well, healing is a little bit slow. Sometimes it's slower than it has to be. But I put on here in the Book of Common Prayers was one of the prayers that I found so powerful. Lord, I ask that you forgive and release all those whom I have hurt and harmed. And I ask that you forgive and release all those whom I have hurt, who have hurt and harmed me. See, it's going back to that two-way street. I want to release those people that I've condemned, whether I see them or not, because we're always giving off vibes. We're always exchanging energy with others, whether we're with them or whether we're just thinking about them. Have you ever thought of someone and then you meet them, or, you know, they say, well, I've been thinking about you, because our vibes talk to each other. And that two-way street, it's those that, yeah, they hurt and harmed me, and I've been holding on to it, but I want to be released from that, but I also want to release those that I have hurt and harmed. It's willing to be willing. Do you know that goldfish will grow to the container in which they live, but they won't outgrow it? They may not can swim as well because they've grown pretty much, but they won't outgrow it. They won't, you know, be to where that the little bowl is so confining that they have to jump out to try to find something else, because giving and receiving is always a two-way street. Step 7, that we humbly ask to have our shortcomings removed. And this picture here, what I have on that is a cage, and the door was open and the bird was allowed to be set free. But we have to open our own cage door and set ourselves free. I matter, you matter. But in the fact that we do matter, and we matter a lot, but it's not all about us individually. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. Sometimes they will think, I have to punch down how great I am, talking about how wonderful I am. No, it's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. It's that it's not all about me, but it is about you. Definitely. And we can begin to remove our shortcomings when we realize and we see that, well, they are there, that maybe we can get to the point where they're not as short. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. To make a list of those. And initially, you may only be 1 or 2, but the more honest we become with ourselves, we can begin to see that, you know, maybe just a disregard. But anyway, it is an initial step of wanting to be restored to relationship. Wanting to be restored. It's that love and belonging is a basic human need. It's not a want, it's a need. And it never expires and it never runs out. And we become more lonely and more, well, it just never runs out. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And that we need to be judicious in admitting our faults to others or in letting them know how much they have harmed us. Because someone else may not be at the point yet where they're really willing to admit the fact that they were snarky to you, that they hurt you, that they injured you some way, that they abused you, that they slapped you, that they whatever. They may be still living in that illusion. So if it's going to injure and cause more harm and stir up that bee's nest rather than bring some calm, then it's best to wait. And it's learning choice theory and the connecting and the disconnecting habits. Those things that draw us together and those things that push us apart. Because in step 9, we definitely want the things that begin to draw us together to one another. Step 10 is to continue to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admit it. Going back to getting real, being responsible. It's learning to live in the now that always is. It's always now, right here, right now, and it's always there. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation, deep thinking, through meditation, to improve our conscious contact with divinity as we understood him. There it is again. I don't have to know it all. Praying for knowledge of what's best for us and the strength to carry it out. It's just beginning to think about, whatever. The energies that's in this universe, that, the ones that I see so many people that are healthier and happier, and it must be true because they're always talking about it, whether it's a TED talk or whether it's a sermon, they're always writing a book about it because I want to be like that. I want to think those thoughts. I want to begin to be that way. And it's that awareness that I'm up here, I'm on the 7th floor, the 8th floor, the 10th floor. I'm up here where that consciousness is becoming, I can see so much further, and self-evaluating and that personal critiquing. And 12 is having had a spiritual awakening by taking these steps. We tried to convey this message to others and to practice these principles in everything that we do. Just to live our life in a way. Alexander Pope, here's a quote from him. He said, "Some people will never understand anything because they learn everything too soon." And I think that's so deep. That we hear it and we buy into a concept, and it kind of goes back to William Powers, what he had to say about Dr. Glasser and reality therapy, that you think you know it because it's so plain and simple, and you think you know it right up front, and then you realize, wow, that was deeper than I thought it was. That we never understand anything because we learn everything too soon, as we just skim off the top rather than looking at the depth of it. And sometimes, but we need to learn a lot more about connecting habits and disconnecting habits. But sometimes we need to get in there and roil the waters so that those things that have settled, but they haven't healed, so that they need to be brought up so that they can come to surface and be, take a net, take something and capture it so that it can be actually thrown away. So it is looking at the fact that life is a mystery. And the more we can begin to understand and the more we can begin to look, it's looking at the fact that change is always an inside job. And we are the ones, as we begin to change ourselves, then we have something we can work on, something we can work with. And that it's not instant, one day at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 minute at a time. And that change really is being willing to see the unfamiliar in a different light. Well, I thank you for being here and wish you good mental health and many blessings.